welcome to the Creative Adventure, an artist's guide to modern freelancing. Thank you for joining me in the tavern today. Close your programs, put down your axe, your bow, your sword, your magical staff, your Thunder Fury, whatever you use to do your freelancing, adventuring thing. Close ZBrush. Let us relax in the tavern today, get some stew, get some ale, sit at the bar, and join me for a short story on the recruiter. So you step into the tavern today, and as you're walking through, you realize it's significantly more crowded than usual. There's a long line in front of a table set up on the opposite side of the bar, and in front of that table, the line, it's filled with young, aspiring adventurers, fighters, warriors, even some mages, there's a warlock and a necromancer there. They're just lining up, trying to see if they can join the battalion, the army of the land of the city of Greed. And you see the usual dry, uniformed recruiter. He's giving people the paperwork and the badge to say, hey, you're going to join the battalion. You're going to get the promise of 3 square meals, roof over your head, healing if you get hurt in battle. It sounds pretty awesome on paper. You as a freelancer, though, maybe not what you wanted, so you just take your seat at the bar and you have your stew and your ale, and everything's normal. But as you are enjoying your meal, there are 3, again, unsavory mercenaries, and 2 of them sit side by side and one behind you. You're kind of trapped. It's a little cringe, to be honest. And what seems to be the leader says to you, get a load of these chumps. Joining the battalion for the promise of a warm bed, 3 square meals, right? Like, how could you do something like that? We could just make as much coin as we want as freelancers. You ignore it, you stay silent. Or at least that's what I would do. Depending on your level of risk, you may want to do something different. You may want to join them, depending on your alignment. But I would stay silent. And you could tell that the adventurers that are speaking to you, they're freelancers, but their armor is not really kept. It's kind of unorganized. There's some damage marks. They probably do decent enough in a fight, but they don't have coordination. They don't have process. Unlike the recruiters from the City of Greed and the battalion, they're buttoned up, they're uniformed, their armor looks great, it looks shiny, etc. So you try and enjoy your meal, but there's this eternity of this sales pitch from this mercenary trying to get you on board. He says, don't got much to say, huh? Well, me and my boys here got a job, and we've been trying to find one more to help us get this big score, and we can't work with some of these amateurs in the rest of the inn here. You look like you have what it takes, though, and we want to have you so we could get this score, and we can make so much coin. And he just continues on and on telling you about how they have this plan. They're going to get there. They're going to be able to get through the job super easily. It's going to be an easy gig. Sounds great on paper, but you look forward, or I would look forward, and the barkeep, and as he dries all of his glasses of ale, he just nods. No, not good, man. Get out of here. You don't want to participate with these dudes. He may know something that you don't, but your intuition is correct. Say no. Eventually, they get bored and leave. They're frustrated. They're angry. They don't want... They wanted you on, but you could tell it just was not going to be a good situation either. The barkeep, as they leave, the barkeep approaches you and says, I'm glad you ignored them, because honestly, you would have been either left unpaid, hurt more, took on more than you bargained for, or dead, whether it would have been at the mercy of the people who are trying to stop these mercenaries from getting the gig done, or some more unsavory things at the end of the job, because not everyone is aligned with good intentions. But he's right. As a freelancer, there are benefits that you get when you join the army, the City of Greed. You do sacrifice a lot of your freedom, but there are parts of it that may be right for some people, such as the promise of 3 square meals, the promise that if you get hurt in battle, a healer will be right there. And sometimes if you take a job as a freelancer that you miscalculated, you might be doing more work than you planned, you might get hurt, you might have to fight bigger things, and it is purely on your coin. So as a freelancer, you must decide, is the freedom worth it for the choice to take on any opportunity that comes your way, whether it's fighting a dragon or just a couple of zombies in a little dungeon? Likewise, is it right for you to maybe join the battalion for the City of Greed and fight, but you don't know what you're going to be fighting all the time? And when you fight in a big army that's coordinated, sure, you have leaders that are trying to coordinate the outcome for everyone together, but they might be sending you into something that you just don't know. And either way, whether you're a freelance fighter, freelance wizard, or you're part of the big army, there's going to be uncertainty in either scenario. Now, I want you to think about this short story, and we're going to take a short rest, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the uncertainty of freelancing. Welcome back to the tavern. We're talking about the uncertainty of freelancing and the things that a lot of people don't consider when it just comes to working as an adult, whether you're a freelancer or a freelance artist, freelance creator, or you are someone who works a traditional 9-to-5 job. You get a W-2 at the end of the year, or you get a W-9. Tax references aside, if you don't know what those are tax forms that you receive as an employer that does work for, or employee, whether you're a freelancer or not. When you do stuff for money, you have to pay taxes in the United States, and that's typically how it's done. If you're outside of the United States, I'm sure there's another scenario, but either way, when it comes to being someone who works, a modern adult, a modern contributor to society, you are doing work, and there are certain benefits and costs that come with each lifestyle that you choose. So when it comes to working a 9-to-5 job, let's say you're an artist and you're working in a studio, there's a lot of amazing things that can actually exist when it comes to working at a studio. Those things could be non-cash offers. When you work at a studio, you may have some sort of retirement plan. When you work at a studio, you also have medical benefits, dental, etc. And some advice that I heard from another friend who got this advice is to always take care of your feet and your teeth, because if you can't walk, you're going to be miserable. And if you can't eat, you're also going to be miserable. And having a traditional 9-to-5 job means that you don't need to worry about your medical stuff all that much. But if you do some research on medical insurance in the United States in general, when it comes to being a employee or a freelancer, you're still paying for your medical insurance. The benefit about working at a studio versus doing it as a freelancer is you may pay a little less when you're at a studio, because those big companies, they have these systems and packages that they've purchased with these large corporations for health insurance, so that you can get a better plan, versus as a freelancer, because you're just one person, or if you're maybe a mini studio, you might have a couple people, but all that being said, you're probably paying a little bit more, because the big companies, they're buying a lot more medical insurance packages. So as a freelancer, there's benefits of freedom, but you lose on some of the non-cash offers that you get at a studio. So we're going to go through some of those things today, and hopefully it'll just get you to think like, what is the thing that you are looking for out of your lifestyle as someone who makes art for a living, whether it's content, illustration, 3D, motion graphics, video, etc. So when it comes to being an on-staff employee, there are the comforts beyond just medical insurance and the like predictable schedule. Sometimes going into an office might actually be beneficial to you. Let's say you're getting started early in your career and you're just out of college, or you just finished taking a bunch of YouTube classes and you're now getting a traditional job in the craft that you want to work on. You have the benefit of going into an office and working around people who are share similar goals, share similar lifestyles, share similar education, and you get to learn from them. And that is something that is worth a ton when it comes to growing as an artist in your career. Because if you just follow what you learned once in college, you're going to be doing the same thing for your career, and it's going to be hard to grow and hopefully make more money. So if you're around more artists and more people, it'll make it easier to collaborate with those people. And in a sense, being in a studio is a large form of collaboration. Versus when you're as a freelancer, sure, you're collaborating with your clients. You might maybe hire on a friend here or there to help out stuff, but because you may be working from home most of the time, you don't really get the opportunity to like directly learn how people work and how people think. So it would be unfair of me to say that being a on-staff artist is a bad thing, because there are certainly benefits. And like I personally did not experience being a studio artist immediately out of college, and I've still not had that experience. And I've had some of my friends, Jonathan Winbush and EJ House and Frost, they've mentioned like working at a studio to me, and I'm like, maybe that would be a good thing for me. But I've never personally experienced that, and I've kind of done everything on my own. And I share that because while I have been able to learn a ton from YouTube, Jonathan Winbush has encouraged me that was a really good thing for his career, because it enabled him to understand what is the process. So when he gets freelance work, he can at least join the process of other studios as he participates as a freelancer, because he knows how the studios work and run, and he can build his services as a freelancer that best fit the studio lifestyle and the overall studio work, so he's easier to work with. Versus for me personally, because I've never been in studio, I've kind of just been building my own systems. And while that's useful, it may be a little bit inefficient relative to these like big engines that you may see companies like Disney or Blizzard already have. So when it comes to working at a studio, you get the opportunity to work with other people that are like-minded, and you may have a boss, and hopefully you have a good boss or a good manager who encourages you and pushes you. I hate to say it, not all situations are going to be amazing when it comes to finding a good boss, and that's where finding a good studio job that you could stay at for a long time is hard, because if you want to like really grow in your career, it's good to have a good boss, and unfortunately you can't control those things. In the same way that as a freelancer, there may be opportunities and jobs that come your way where the client may not be awesome. Likewise, the client might be amazing. It really just depends on, honestly, the people who you choose to work with. Now, when it comes to being a studio artist versus a freelancer, there's, again, positives and negatives for both. And there's no wrong answer, because if you like to have the predictable schedule of a 9 to 5 where you show up on time for a specific job, you do work for a certain amount of time, and then you clock out at the end of the day, that's awesome. But in the same way, if you just like clock in 9 to 5, you kind of do the bare minimum, it's going to be hard to grow. You could say there's no upside for doing more work as a studio artist or a studio as a traditional employee, versus as a freelancer, there's technically unlimited upside, as in you could theoretically make more money if you work more, but With the uncertainty of freelancing, you don't know what the market is doing. Sometimes clients are paying less. Sometimes the skills that you do are in less demand. So you could theoretically work more, but because the market doesn't demand your skills at the current moment, you're actually going to be making less money, or maybe doing more work, effectively doing the same thing, less money for more work, because you're just trying to make ends meet. Versus when you're a studio artist, and no matter the time of year, if you have a contract as a studio artist, you are making the same amount predictably no matter how good it is. But you're probably going to be making less, and that upside is going to be capped pretty much. And on top of that, lastly, when it comes to working as a studio artist, some of your work you may not ever be able to talk about because the studio owns it completely. And while I was working at companies when I was much younger, that was just a usual thing. Like, because you just did one small piece of a big project, one, it was harder to include in your portfolio, and you couldn't really talk about some of the things that you got to work on. Versus if you are a freelancer, you can use a lot of that work in your portfolio because you're probably taking in more roles for the project, and you can negotiate with your clients when is a good time that you can use that work in your portfolio to hopefully get more work in the future. So I've given you an earful of some of the uncertainties, the benefits, costs of being a studio artist versus being a freelancer. So let's go ahead and take a short rest. And when we come back, I'm just going to list off some of the actual more tangible benefits of being a studio artist and then being a freelancer, so you can decide what is going to be a good lifestyle for you. So short rest, and we'll come back with some more spell slots. So benefits of working as a studio artist could be a lot of things. I've mentioned some of them already, but that includes having medical, dental, and a 401k retirement plan. Now, every single company is going to have a different plan. Every single company is going to have different non-cash offers beyond your salary. So the medical package that you get from a company may be better than as what you get as a freelancer. Same thing with dental. Now, a 401k is something that you get when you are a studio artist versus a freelancer. A 401k is a retirement plan, and we'll talk about this in another future podcast on why retirement and saving for retirement is super important. But the difference between a studio artist and having a 401k versus a freelancer is that as a freelancer, you get something called a Roth IRA. If you haven't heard what that is, I highly recommend the book I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. I know the title kind of sounds a little like self-helpy cringe, but I will say it's actually written in a very lighthearted way to make personal finance really useful. But the reason why I share this is a Roth IRA is the first option for a lot of freelancers to save for retirement after a 401k. Like, as a freelancer, you can't get a 401k without doing some weird, crazy, like I own an LLC sort of thing, and you're going to be spending more money. It's going to get really complicated. The easiest thing for most freelancers to save for retirement is just going to be a Roth IRA. But that is capped out at, I believe, in 2025 at the time of this recording that I'm recording this. Don't hold me to it, but a Roth IRA, I believe, is capped at $7,000 now. When the book I Will Teach You to Be Rich was written, I believe the cap was $6,000. But all that being said, you can only cap out your retirement savings to whatever the cap is for a Roth IRA for that year. Versus if you're a studio artist, sometimes you can invest into your 401k, and your employer will match whatever you contribute to your 401k. So what that means is that as a studio artist, if you have a 401k retirement plan, your monthly income, like after taxes, the monthly income that you receive being on staff will be less because you're contributing a portion of your income to your 401k, but your employer will match whatever you contribute to that. I have a friend who works at Disney, and she does a very, very large contribution to her 401k, and that's setting herself up for financial success in her retirement. So, some of the first non-cash offers that you get from working at a big studio is your medical, your dental, and your 401k. Versus as a freelancer, you have to pay for your own medical insurance, you have to pay for your own dental insurance, and you also have to do your 401k or your Roth IRA as a freelancer. So it really depends on the package that you get, and I'll share some numbers broadly just to give you an idea. So I do live in California, and because I'm a freelancer, I use something called Covered California, and I have the lowest plan with Kaiser, which is somewhere between $300 and $500. I'm keeping it broad because that's generally how much I have to pay each month to be a freelancer that uses Covered California in the state of California. Now, I have an Anthem plan when it comes to my dental insurance, and I pay somewhere between $40 and $80 a month for that. And I actually pay a little bit more for my dental insurance because I want to have I want to take care of my teeth and make sure that like I can keep all my teeth throughout my life, which is very important to me. And as a freelancer, I have to pay a lot of money for both my medical and my dental. Now, also, I'm contributing to my Roth IRA each month, and that means I'm setting aside at least $500 per month to to save for my retirement as a freelancer, versus most artists don't even think about saving for retirement. So when you work as a studio artist, that is just already established. You're going to get your monthly income, you're going to get your medical insurance, you're going to get your dental insurance, and there probably is going to be some sort of retirement plan. Versus as a freelancer, you don't get that. Okay. So we talked about some of the first non-cash offers. As a studio artist, you also get regular pay. It's probably paid every week, every other week, etc. Some companies might give you a yearly bonus, depending on your performance, which is okay, cool. It's not going to be a ton, but you sometimes get a bonus, which is cool. I've heard some friends get some bonuses here and there for doing an exceptional job on some parts of the project. Performance reviews. If you have a good boss, they might be able to give you specific goals and outcomes for your performance. And because of that, you don't really need to think about like, oh, what do I need to plan as a freelancer to like level up my skills and do better work, etc. It's like that's just kind of built in. But I will also say that because the performance in corporate environments is like they're looking for like consistent growth, versus like as a freelancer you can kind of like choose how you want to grow, versus like as a studio artist, it's like if you do character art, it's just like go do character art better. You only do character art. That's all you do, sort of thing. Versus like for me as a freelancer, while this may be a blessing and a curse, I am familiar with ZBrush and Blender and Cinema 4D and DaVinci Resolve and Premiere and After. I have a lot more skills that I've invested because my goal is to be like a broad generalist that can serve a lot of projects, versus a lot of studio artist job is just get better at the one skill that you do. So performance reviews is like your performance is kind of capped based on the roles of your job, versus as a freelancer you could kind of do whatever you want. Some of it might be in more demand or less demand, but you also have the benefit of leveling up skills that you may observe in the market could be more valuable. Like I picked up 3D modeling because being able to make my own assets has been helpful to not only making stuff for other studios, but also leveling up my portfolio as well. Now, you do also have a predictable schedule when it comes to being a staff artist. 9 to 5, 10 to 6, etc. Probably lunches at noon. You get most federal holidays off in the United States. That's Christmas, New Year's, 4th of July, etc. Predictable days off. versus as a freelancer, you kind of can take whenever you want off, but sometimes that may mean you're working over the holidays. And I will say personally, I have done work over the holidays, and sometimes it kind of sucks. I specifically say like Christmas and Thanksgiving and New Year's, I'm off like on those days specifically because clients aren't responding on those days. But like sometimes, rarely. But I've had a couple days over the like 8 years I've been freelancing where I was just like, oh, I got to work on a little bit of work on Christmas Eve just to get some stuff out for a New Year's thing or whatever else. Now, the last thing that is really awesome about being on staff, while I personally have not experienced these things fully, while I was working at Cryptozoic Entertainment when I was much younger, I did benefit from some of these things. I remember early on when we were working at Cryptozoic, for a Christmas gift, we all got Disney passes at one point, which was really sweet for a year. So non-cash offers from a studio job, that might include company parties. While some of them may honestly be pretty mid, some of them might be awesome. If you work at a really awesome place, you have really awesome people who invest in those company parties and community building, etc. I'll say from personal experience, while I am a freelancer and I have contributed to some of the freelancing for the company Maxon. They make the software ZBrush and Cinema 4D. I've gotten to participate in some of their company parties and community events, and they're pretty awesome. They go to pinball. They contribute to NAB in a meaningful way to help support and stream artists. They really contribute to creating these awesome like company hosted parties to really give back to the community that helps support their products. So non-cash offers could be company parties. I can also imagine like coffee room donut, stale donut and burned coffee company parties exist. I have been so grateful that a lot of the company parties that I've been able to participate in, whether it was at Cryptozoic or at Maxon, they've been pretty awesome, but I can imagine some companies may not be as great. That's just a culture thing. Some companies may have a company cafeteria. In the past, I have had the opportunity to go tour through Blizzard and Riot and Disney through just friends who I know in the industry. They would just invite me out to lunch, and they have a cafeteria that exists. So you don't need to worry about bringing your own food, going out. There might be a company cafeteria at these large companies, and at small companies, they may not have a big cafeteria, but they might have a kitchen with some snacks and a fridge and maybe some drinks, etc., which helps you just kind of like focus and stay on the work. Sometimes there might be comp lunches, little holiday things. Your boss might be like, hey, you got to crunch, so we're going to pay for your food, etc. And unfortunately, crunch time is a thing that you have to work more but get paid the same amount because there's just crunch time, etc. And then lastly, being a studio artist, you might have something like paid training. And the paid training could just be like, hey, we know you're an artist, but we need you to level up these skills. We're going to pay for you to take on these skills. So all that being said, there can be benefits of working a studio job. Now, being a freelancer, what are the benefits, costs, etc.? You have to pay for your own medical insurance. Okay, but you get to choose. Maybe you choose a lesser plan because you are pretty healthy. And because of that, you just pay for the bare minimum. And as such, you get to choose maybe to pay less over time. Because as a studio artist, you're still paying for your medical insurance. It's just getting taken out of your paycheck. You're also compensated differently. You're maybe compensated more. I'll say that some of the salaries that I hear from artists on staff, maybe it's between 50 and 100K, which is great, awesome. And I'll say I will be able to have years where I can make somewhere between 70 and 170K, and it's been pretty awesome on some of the great years. It's also been pretty awful on the slow years. I'm compensated differently depending on the market, depending on the skills, and I am compensated for my availability. If I'm available on the weekend and the client's on super rush mode, I can gently, not advantageously, but I can be like, hey, like, it's the weekend, dude, and you clearly need this, and I have to move some things around. Can we do I would have to charge a 20% markup on this because this is a little unfortunate, and I'm not trying to be predatory here, but like this sucks, and I want to be able to help you out, but this is just one of those things where I have to move some things around, and I'm the only one that can get this job done. And someone dropped the ball on your side, so can we just? I'd like to. I have to charge a 20% markup on this. Sorry. And I've had some clients say yes, and I've had some clients pass to that. But being able to charge a little bit more for rush jobs is a thing. You can also schedule anything that you want whenever you want. So I'm able to go to the gym at 2 p.m. some days because it's just like, yeah, I woke up, I did my all my work early. I'm at the gym at 2. I don't need to worry about the long gym rush because most people's gym schedules revolve around the 9 to 5. They're either in the morning or in the evening versus you can just go in the afternoon as a freelancer, which is really nice. You can eat anytime you want. You can sleep in anytime you want as a freelancer. All these things sound great on paper, but it does come with a lot of uncertainty. You don't know what the market is doing as far as payment. Sometimes clients might pay late. Sometimes clients might pay early. It really just depends. You can't control those things. And I do recommend going to listen to the previous podcast that I mentioned, the Let Them podcast as a freelancer, where you learn to let some of those things go, let things outside of your control happen, because you can't control them as a freelancer. And let's be real, as a freelancer, there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of things outside of your control. What you can control is how you show up to projects. So, last couple benefits about being a freelancer. If you do grow as a freelancer, you could potentially open up a small business, an LLC. You get to be able to write off more in your taxes as a freelancer because you could be an LLC. You have complete ownership of the work. You do more parts of the work, so you can include more in your portfolio. You get to choose who you work with, which is really awesome. You can just be like, no, I don't want to work with this client ever again. That's great. You could also choose to work with clients who pay less, but they're just really awesome projects. And I love some of those projects, to be honest, because yeah, I might make a little bit less. I try and make sure that those projects I still make at least cost or just a little bit more, but my profit is a little bit lower. But it's just like really cool work that I get to include in my portfolio, and I can leverage that to get even bigger and better things. And you can also work on personal projects at your time and your leisure, and really just work your freelance schedule around your prime time. So, uncertainty either way. Last thing I will say is that there is uncertainty when it comes to your job as a studio artist. If you are familiar with the video game industry, I'm sure, or even the tech industry, where there's layoffs happening all the time, and they attribute it to poor performers, cost downsizing, team downsizing, bloat downsizing, etc. No matter your role as a freelancer or a studio artist who has a traditional 9 to 5, there is always the risk of your job. And I got some advice from a friend of mine. His name is Alex Charsky, and we worked together at Cryptozoic. He was working at a company called Hex, and I believe he went to Hearthstone for a while. And then now he's at a new company. And he told me this advice while we were playing Dungeons and Dragons years ago. And this advice was, you could get laid off tomorrow. That is completely outside of your control. And the best thing you can do is show up and do your absolute best. And when you do your best, even if you get laid off, like you at least showed up. And when you show up and you do a good job, whether you're a freelancer or you are a studio artist, if you show up and you do a good job and people notice that and see that, your career is probably going to be fine. Because if you're good to work with, if you do good work, and you show up meaningfully, you'll be able to have a career for your life. Now, it also depends on your cost of living, and how important having a job is for your income. If you live beyond your means, it's going to be much harder. But if you live below your means and understand that you could be laid off tomorrow, you'll be able to make it, because it honestly, just focusing on being a meaningful contributor to society versus just like, I want to just make as much money as possible. Like, when you contribute meaningfully, people see that, and people will bring you on, whether you're a staff artist or a freelancer. So that is the uncertainty of freelancing. This was the Creative Adventure Podcast. Thank you so much for listening to my words or my face if you're watching the video version. I hope the time was worth it, because you're not getting it back. And I hope you enjoyed the short story of the recruiter and how little fantasy world, whether you join the battalion of the City of Greed and get the 3 square meals promised and a warm bed sometimes, or you have some scummy adventurers who may be trying to get you on a gig where it may not turn out so great. I hope you enjoyed that analogy of how the uncertainty of being a freelancer, whether you use a wizard staff or a stylist, helped you understand that there's uncertainty in either way of just being an artist, and the best thing we can do is show up and do good work. If you enjoyed this podcast, it would mean the world to me if you could go to your podcaster of choice and leave some sort of review. It could be good, it could be bad. It would help me grow the podcast and do the podcasting growth sort of thing. And apologies for the clicky clackies. I was grabbing my little dice container. We're going to end today with a usual dice roll. How is our next freelance opportunity going to go? Again, this Dragon D20 dice that I've been rolling has been super good on average. And if you are listening to it, it is a full metal D20 that has these like little dragon inscriptions on it, and it just looks super cool. So yeah, we're gonna just give this a roll, how our freelance project is doing. That's a 16. I'm really stoked with that. Thank you so much for listening to the Creative Adventure Podcast, and until next time, may the freelance dice forever roll in your favor. Take care.